4.1, beginning of chapter 4, which is focusing on decimals. 4.1 focus on decimal notation, place value, and rounding. This can go back to, again, chapter 1 when we talked about the verbiage of how to write numbers. This is going to be really important. So on a place value chart, we can identify, we have our millions. Well, we'll start with ones. Ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, and millions. And we know all of these from here up. We understand all of those. You should know those pretty well by now. And then we had fractions. And then today we're going to actually focus in on what comes after the decimal. And the decimal we focus on is, we call it and. It's a very important word. So we would say 1 and 1/10. That's what this stands for here. So we have 1/10, or we would see it as 0.1. Hundredths would be 1 over 100, or 0.01. This is the tenths place. The second one would be the hundredths place. Going on, we have the thousandths place, 1 over 1,000. Notice that it has that THS on the end to represent it's a decimal. So we have 0.001. 10,000ths. So your 10,000ths would be 1 over 10,000, or 0.0001. And it goes on the same pattern for the 100,000ths, the millionths, etc. We just want to understand that if I said we had a number like 0 and 532 thousandths, that's what this would represent. We always talk about whatever number's in the last place, and this is in the thousandths place. So we would read this as 0 and 532 thousandths. There are a couple of different ways that I'm going to ask you to represent numbers. Let's look at the first one. Expanded form. This again is from chapter 1. When we're looking at expanded form, I'm asking you to take the number and break it up into an addition problem. So each one has its own value. So starting with 423, you know 400, you know 20, and you know the 3 is ones. Then you have the first one, which is the 5, and it's in a tenths place, so 5/10, plus 7 over 100, because it's in the hundredths place, and then the 6, which is in the thousandths place. And that's the answer. The next one I'm going to ask you to do is writing it in words. In words can be tricky because I'm looking for you to tell me what this is in value. So you can say 0 and, or you can just write 4/10. On the next one, I'll give you that as an example. So in this one, we would say 0 and, for the decimal, 4. This is in the hundredths. The THS is really important. And the last one, this is 4, and it is in the thousandths place. Both of these would be correct. Spelling will matter on those. Write each number in words. So here's your example for 5. We start with that 5. The decimal means and, so you need to have that, and 4/10. The next one, you have 5 and 4/100. And on the last one for this example, you have 5 and 4/1000. So then we're going to continue on with the same pattern, writing numbers and words. We just want to make sure that you understand that this is a number, then there's a decimal, that means and then the next part is a number. So we're going to focus on each piece. So we have 3, and this is a number, 64. And whenever we see a number greater than 20, we have a dash, 64. And where the 4 ends, that's where we're going to label it. So this is in the hundredths section. So we are going to have that THS. I want to remind you to do that. So we have 64, and then we write in hundredths. And we're done. That's the answer. Example 5. Write 25 and 4,936 in words. 10,000s in words. So we have 25. And 25 gets a dash because it's more than 20. The decimal means and. And then we focus on this number as a whole as well. So we have 4,000. $900, 36, which is more than 20, so you get a dash. And then because the 6 ends in the 10,000ths place, we write 10,000ths. And that's our answer. Example 6. Write each number as a fraction or a mixed number. Do not reduce to lowest terms. I should say lowest, not slowest. Do not simplify. So we're going to write 0 and 4 thousandths as a fraction. So 4 over tenths, hundredths, thousandths, so 1,000. In the next one, we have 3 and 64 hundredths. We have 3. This ends in the hundredths, tenths, hundredths. So 64 over 100. And we're not simplifying. And the last one for C, we have 25 and 4,936. And we actually already solved it up here. This is in the 10,000s because we have tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. Not simplifying, so we are finished. Let's look at rounding numbers. Rounding numbers is one of those things that a lot of people think they know how to do, but the problem is we forget some of those common rules. We talked about those main rules, and nothing is going to change from the ones that we've already talked about, so let's review. So the rule for rounding decimals is similar to the rule for rounding whole numbers. If the digit to the right, which is the same as what we did before, of the one that we were rounding to is 5 or more, we're going to round up. So we add 1 to the digit in the column that we're rounding to, otherwise we're going to leave it alone. And it stays the same. So same thing, the only difference is now we're going to be talking about numbers with decimals. So we are going to round to the nearest 100. So we need to figure out where the 100 value is. 100 does not end in THS, so it's actually in the first part of your number. So ones, tens, hundreds. So we're going to round to the 2. Okay, so that means the 9 is going to stay there. And you're going to see what the 3 tells the 2 to do. The 3 tells the 2 to stay the same. And why is that? Because it is less than 5. So we're gonna bring down the 2 because it told us to stay the same, and then everything after that becomes a 0. So all of these numbers become zeros, but you do not need to keep all of them. So anything after the decimal, you don't need. So this number would be 9,200, and you're done. Now, if it's asking you to round to the 1,000th, you will need numbers for that. So we have, it wants you to round to the round 0.00346 to the nearest 10,000th. Well, in the 10,000th place, we have tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000. So it's the 4. And what does the number to the right of it tell it to do? That's what you're asking. So the 6 tells the 4 to go up. So everything here on the left is going to stay the same, 0.003, and the 4, because it goes up, is going to become 5, and everything else after that becomes zeros. So you don't need those zeros, so your answer is 0 and 35 10,000ths. And that is 4.1, decimal notation, place value, and rounding.